Hello, my friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family. I hope you guys are doing well. See, we have quite a few people in the house.
Hi, William. Hi, Rebecca. Hi, Dean, MJ, Sweetgrass, Matt Williams, Crystal Core. Hi, you guys.
Yes, hey, Raven, we need Monty Python. Yeah, bring out your dead keeps ringing through my head. That rhymed.
That's brutal. That's really brutal. Ouch.
Oh, God. Yeah, you gotta laugh. You have to laugh. Oh, okay. Ego says, I caught the virus and released it.
Good job.
Hey there, Pole Shift and Chris P and everybody else we got going there. Yeah, interesting times we got. Wow, these are interesting times. So interesting.
It is in the uncanny things that are happening now, which is, I don't know. I don't feel sorry for the guy.
Okay, we're going to be going over that way.
We will.
We're going to be going over that way. Just want to share, boy, my dreams last night were all about the virus, and kind of like, being forced to go into certain checkpoints and things like that, but yet having people mingle in ways where it was obvious people were going to just keep spreading it. So a lot of you guys, you went and checked out what President Trump said, and there's a lot of people that are either irritated or feel like, what's he thinking, looking at or listening to what he said.
Or they're confused. They're like, well, should I be concerned now? I mean, I was asking that question, but I look around and, use my own senses and stuff. And I'm like, I'm not going to be flippant about it.
Well, remember, when the Iranian attack came out, he said, hey, we're all good. Everybody's fine. Nobody got hurt. We're all good. And then later on, over 100 people have traumatic head injuries. And the reality is probably a lot worse than that. Okay, so Jason was doing some digging. And, yeah, I hope you guys did check out that video, and there's more than that video too, but they keep getting plucked out, and so other people keep uploading as under new channels, from what I've seen. And happy birthday in the house there. Happy birthday to you. Yeah, so yeah, it is a state of confusion, Sweetgrass, most definitely. And I think that honestly, I feel like there's no country right now that has leadership that's being more dishonest with citizens than the U.S. Look at like what we're seeing out there.
Thank you, Dr. Enoch Metatron. Thanks, Mike and Cindy. Much appreciated. Much appreciated.
Thank you, brother. We appreciate your support. Yes, as Adam says, yes. Okay, let's start. So one of the things I wanted to do was get a little historical perspective before we dive in. So the Spanish flu, just so you guys know, and of course, it was at the tail end of World War I. So, we had the war to end all wars, which didn't end anything. Just killed more people than any war before it in modern times. Although I venture to guess there's been wars that we don't know of that may have killed way more. So the Spanish flu in 1918, deadliest in history, infected an estimated 500 million people worldwide, about 1/3 of the planet's population. Now they're telling us this is going to be, well, now they're saying anywhere from 30% up to 80%, depending on who you're listening to, of the population will get this at some point. About 1/3 population of the planet back in the time of 1918 did get the Spanish flu, killed an estimated 20 million to 50 million, and now some say as high as 100 million, including some 675,000 Americans. The 1918 flu was first observed in Europe, the United States, and parts of Asia before swiftly spreading around the world. At that time, there were no effective drugs or vaccines to treat this. Citizens were ordered to wear masks Schools and theaters and businesses were shuttered, and bodies piled up in makeshift morgues before the virus ended its deadly global march. And so, flu, influenza attacks the respiratory system. It's very contagious, as we all know. Did you know during the flu pandemic in 1918, New York City Health Commissioner tried to slow the transmission of the flu by ordering businesses to open and close on staggering shifts to avoid overcrowding the subways? The flu comes every year, and of course there's different variances, and they do make vaccines for them. Although a lot of times they're not effective because they might make it for a certain type, and it's not exactly that type. So I just wanted to give you guys a background on this. So, what caused it? It's unknown exactly where the particular strain of influenza that caused the pandemic came from. However, the 1918 flu was first observed in Europe, America, and areas of Asia. And then obviously it spread everywhere. But the fighting, as we know in World War I, was mostly in Europe there. It's interesting to look at the history of this thing. So basically 500 million people worldwide. At that time, we had about 1.5 billion people in 1918. So the population's grown up to like 7.7 billion or so right now. So 500 million affected, got it. Perhaps 50 million died. That's a big percentage, and some say as high as 100 million. And so that was 1918. When we look at the Black Plague, it came and went. It kept coming back. So it was something that was a little bit different. It started here, you see, in central China in 1333. And then it arrived in Europe in 1347. So about 14 years later. And then it arrived in England, 1348. And the daughter of King Edward III died of the plague in 1348. Reached London that year. Then you had 3,000 Jews died in Germany of it. King Edward III orders the streets to be cleared of the dead bodies in 1349. 200 people buried every day in February 2nd, 1349. And it reached Moscow and the entire continent now infected 1351. And we see there was a fourth outbreak over here in 1388. So that's 55 years after the first over in China. And then all the way over here, you see the Italian plague, the Great Plague of Milan, 1629. So a couple hundred years later. And you have the Great Fire of London, September 2nd, 1666. Interesting year. And the plague reaches Austria, 1711. So this was, stretched out over a very, very, very long time frame. So, what are we going to see with this thing? Is it going to blow itself out, or is it going to be something that, as some doctors are now saying, perhaps it stays in the body, perhaps it's something that makes you, chronically affected with it, maybe very much HIV-like, as we had talked about before, and that talking of that got Zero Hedge in trouble with Twitter, and they're not the only one that did. So here you see Pope Francis, who's 83, cancels the event as he's taken ill among the Italian coronavirus crisis, which is rapidly spreading in Italy. It's rapidly spreading over there.
And I'm just remembering something now, and I'll have to do some digging and figure out where I'm remembering this from. But there was, in one of the prophecies, or no, maybe it wasn't a prophecy, but someone predicted a virus that would spread, and it would be similar to the HIV, but you wouldn't, it would be airborne. I'm just now remembering that, and I was wondering if anybody else, jog your memory a little bit, if you can remember anything like that with me. Like 10 years ago, I think I heard of something like this.
Not specifically. I know Nostradamus talks about the papacy like fleeing Italy amid earthquakes and war. So we'll see what else follows with all this. So he was seen kissing people and shaking hands and stuff. And so they've canceled everything, and we'll see if he rebounds. What was interesting is, let's see if we could get this to go over here. I'm not sure if you guys have seen this. So the Pope slaps the hand of this woman. This is posted on January 1st. This is South China Morning Post, right? I think this was probably back in December. Yeah, December 31st, right? So this lady, it's really weird. And I'd watched this before because some people were saying there was a ghost hand that grabs him from nowhere. But in reality, there was like this lady's hand that grabbed him. Then she grabbed him and she pulls him over, and she's saying something I can't understand what she's saying, but very, very adamant. And then she won't let go. And then he slaps her hand, So this caused a stir, and I remember watching it. So now some people are saying that she was talking about the virus and that she was holding on to him, and that this is how he got sick, because now we know that the incubation might be as much as a month, or who knows, maybe even longer. But I'm just sharing it with you guys because it was just curious. This was a really interesting little thing to watch because, he loses his temper and he just whacks at her. And you can see he's really looking very stern and cranky there. He is. See? He just goes and Anyway, it was curious. He lost his cool when a woman grabbed his hand. But see, this lady's hand comes out of nowhere and keeps him from moving. So it was curious. It was just weird.
Let's see. Henry Brown, thank you for your support. Henry says it's getting close. Orange County under a state of emergency. It must be worse than they're leading on if no vaccines, only for strain. Then what if mutate? Yeah, it could. And that's why we really need to focus on our immune systems and take control ourselves. That's our best bet right now, is really boost that immune system. Our bodies are amazing things. They're amazing. We've not been taught about all the incredible things our bodies can do, but we do talk about that off and on the channel.
And as we share with you guys, we pretty much we give our bodies, we make it a point to do intermittent fasting so that the body has a good amount of time to purge. Because it needs to purge. And it really is not just simply calories in, calories out. As my weight stayed pretty stable, even though we're not eating a ton. Yet I do feel that we're getting stronger. At the same time, yesterday we had a fresh shake that felt amazing. I could feel every single cell in my body tingling. It was so good. Boy, it's gonna suck if we can't get fresh produce. And have to be waiting for what you can grow yourself. Yeah. That's one of the blessings of modern society. So CV-19 infects Iranian vice president, and it kills the ambassador to the Vatican. So Iran is being particularly hard hit. So is Italy. They're getting hit pretty damn hard. And there's been several prominent. Oh gosh, I could think of. I think there's 5 prominent Iranian officials now that have been either killed or made very sick. So interesting. People had talked about, is this going to be something because of the ACE2 receptors that's going to hit Asians harder than others? Who knows? Maybe this thing mutates. Maybe this is not what it appears to be. So here you see prominent Iranian cleric and diplomat Hadi Khosrowshahi passed away today, one day after he was admitted to the hospital testing positive for the CV. And he was the ambassador to the Vatican, and later on, Iran's top diplomat in Egypt between 2001 and 2004. And then this is really, they're getting hit hard. You got to wonder, what the heck was that?
Wow.
Jeez, don't you hate these?
Yes.
Look at how that commercial comes out there.
Check.
Yeah, jeez, making me jump. So nothing says we got this under control like confirming that a handful of your government's most senior officials have caught the virus at the root of a deadly pandemic sweeping the globe. After confirming on Thursday that its official death toll from the outbreak had reached 22, with 141 cases confirmed, lawmakers have claimed that the death toll as of Monday was up to 50 in Qom alone. Iranian state media reported that the country's vice president for women and family affairs, Masuma Ebtekar, has tested positive. She is the third senior official to be infected, alongside the deputy health minister and cleric Hadi Khosrowshahi, who succumbed to pneumonia due to his advanced age. And there was those two other officials. One infected the other, and they were both sick on TV. And then there was the general that took over for the general that was assassinated. Doesn't that make you a little suspicious? The way it's hidden, how much longer until the Ayatollah gets sick? Yeah, that makes me really suspicious. And this is Helen Branswell. And you see here Dr. Anthony Fauci, one of the country's leading experts on viruses and director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, told associates that the White House has instructed him not to say anything else without clearance. There you go.
I'm not sure. ABC Now, Taekwondo, love it. Covidin LLC is their connection. Not sure. I just saw a little bit about that this morning, so we haven't dug into that just yet.
So, right there, that says it all right there. So you have a doctor, right? One of the country's leading experts saying the White House has instructed him to not say anything else without clearance. And that's what's going on here. Don't worry, all is fine. We got this under control. The rest of the world might be falling apart, but we got it under control. That's complete BS. Complete BS. And thank you so much for the support, guys.
Yeah, I mean, any support. If you guys could even just please do the thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed. Any support is really, really, really appreciated here.
And, what Jeffrey Parks is talking about, I think there's a lot of things going on here. And I do think this is real. I know it's real. And as I've shared with you guys, too, I tried to find this one video by this ex-military gentleman. I saw it about 5 years ago. And he was talking about DARPA. And he was talking about NANO tech. And how it could be used on the battlefield, literally like a dust that was spread by a plane, and just put it in the wind, and it would go in the battlefield and go into the lungs of the opposing soldiers, and then be like a ticking time bomb, and boom, they just drop like flies without even shooting a bullet. So if they have that tech, if they had that tech, you guys know. So thank you so much, Aaron. Thank you for your support. I hope you guys are doing well up there in Nebraska.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. Outlaw Bob Barker says Trump's speech was a huge lie. I know this firsthand. I'd like to know a little bit more about that if you can.
Well, I mean, just the fact that he was saying, hey, we got this, we're putting VP Pence on top, on point with this. So, yeah, this is huge. It is. There is a gag order going on right now. It's obvious, and it's sad to feel that the U.S. government is one of the least forthcoming and being the most, they're covering up the most, or at least as much as some of the other ones that, we've been talking about. And this is part of it. You see over here, right? Over the last 24 hours, Twitter has suspended and banned a handful of CV info accounts with very large followings. So for those that are familiar with Twitter's terms and guidelines, he's asking, do you see any violations? Because he doesn't want to get shut down. But yeah, that's part of this gag rule. And so looking at now, this is what jumps at you. You see 82,550, so it hasn't climbed super fast. But then again, hardly anybody is truly testing. They are testing in South Korea. And you see South Korea is up to 1,766 cases. You got 705 others. And look at Italy, it's up to 528 now. It's flying in Italy. Iran has said they're not sharing all their numbers, but it's still up to 245. And Japan 189, Japan's covering it up to. Singapore 93, Hong Kong 92, US 60. So we see UK down there at 15, Spain at 15, France at 18, Germany at 26. And we see these red dots growing, guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the red dots are definitely getting more and bigger, kind of like, if you get measles or something like that. Thank you so much, Ashley, for your support. We so appreciate it. But yeah, these red dots, they're getting more frequent and then they're getting bigger. And the United States is no different from the rest of them.
Well, the only thing we're not seeing any major red dots in the U.S. because there's a gag order. Now, if we were to see this Iranian one in proportion to what it is, it would probably be, at least double or triple what it is. And Italy is spreading very, very fast, as we see. So you see right here out of Disclose TV, Italy now reports 650 infected, 17 dead. And so these numbers don't even reflect that yet. It went from 528 now to 650. So it's jumping really quick in Italy, and in Iran too. It makes you wonder. We had saw and we talked about yesterday the fact that China's numbers might be 52 times the numbers that they really are. So there could be like 4 million in China. Now that would make sense, with all the stuff we've heard with the crematoriums. That would make sense numerically. And so this is Scott Gottlieb. He used to be the head of the FDA. And so you see on new CV-19 diagnosis in California today, we will have community spread of the CV in the U.S. It is likely that we have it right now. More cases that remain undiagnosed, but will soon to be revealed. So obviously they're not testing, and then there's the gag order. And, okay, this is the wrong type of corona. Coming ashore soon. Corona seltzer. For you guys that are thirsty. I wonder how it's impacted their business. I wonder if it's actually impacted their business where some people just like subconsciously now they're going to avoid corona and pick up Dos Equis.
I heard, I don't know if this is true, but I heard somebody like threatened to shoot one of their businesses or something. I don't know if it's true or not because of their name. It was just terribly silly.
That is silly. And here you see, now this is in Iran. Behind our house, they're burying 2 people who died of the CV virus. And so this person, Heshmat Alavi, went out and asked them why they insulted us and brought the police. Why don't you let people get closer than 100 meters? How can you be burying them just 20 meters from his house? So obviously, and that looks like a suburban area. Yeah, it does. Very suburban. Yeah. Why would you bury him there? Right? We don't know how things spread, and what if somebody has a garden over there? We just don't know how things are.
Trees. What if they're fruit trees?
Yeah, that's kind of creepy. Yeah. And here you see this is the same person. Report claims 22 CV deaths on February 22nd in Guam alone. The vice president diagnosed inmates with coronavirus symptoms in Iran. Iran's prisons returned to the ward. And then a famous football player, a soccer player from Gom, dies of coronavirus as well. And this is a picture of a nurse that also passed on. The situation over there is pretty bad.
Yeah, and the number is still going up, not down. And I think for that, it's important to keep an eye on it, and it's important that we connect every day, because we don't know what could happen like in the midterm, because this is kind of becoming a big deal. I know there's lots of people saying, oh, it's just a psyop, it's nothing. Well, it must be something, because the numbers are really going up.
They are. Unfortunately, they are, and it could be multi-layered, as we see, again, this advertisement Trump on a roll with the Anunnaki wings. It's interesting. So, this over here, we see coronavirus map live. UK doctors admit infected patients could be denied treatment. So what's it going to look like in the UK? Because, it's in Italy big time right now. What's it going to end up looking like in the UK? How soon till we see, the same sort of situation in the UK that we see in Italy right now? A week, 2 weeks, we don't know, but it's something to be aware of. And when we look, as you see that map right there, and Italy's in red, and we see Iran in red, and obviously China's in red, and none of these really count when you look at some of these colors, because they're not counting people. But let's see, where was that I saw? Okay. Meanwhile, coronavirus mass burial sites are being planned by the UK government for a worst-case scenario pandemic. It has emerged. The Cabinet Office is working with local councils on excess death contingency planning, the BBC reported. Policy editor at BBC Newsnight, Lewis Goodall, tweeted, "I understand the Cabinet Office has been in communication with local authorities about excess death contingency planning, effectively their mass death preparedness plans in the event of coronavirus being at upper end of worst case scenario." So I'm told that the topics in the Cabinet Office discussions include potential new and perhaps mass burial sites. So, interesting.
Marlo says, Evolutionary Energy Arts. Remember the Deagle brother? This might be an answer. Do you know?
The Deagle brother?
The Deagle brother. Can you expand on that?
The Deagle brother.
Yeah, Marlo, right down toward the bottom there. Marlo says, yeah.
I'm not familiar with the Deagle brother.
No.
So we'd have to look into that.
If you could elaborate a little bit.
And yes, and Dan's talking about the market crash. That's part of what's. Oh, she's
brother.
just calling us. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. We know the Deagle report,
yes.
for sure. We've talked about that and the numbers. So, and that's what's got me wondering too, because, at first it looked like China released it either on themselves in error, or some people thought intentionally, because there wasn't going to be enough food to feed the people. We do have this grand solar minimum thing going on. We have magnetic pole reversal going on. We have most definitely crop losses on a massive scale. So the food supply is definitely a huge, huge thing. And so these, if you listen to David Devine at DAP 2030, like he says, every time we go into one of these cycles, for one, China, it crashes. Their leadership is changed. Dynasties come down. And so we also had that Chinese general back there in 2005 saying they either have to take on the U.S. and take out the U.S., or they're going to have to cull half of their population. So, that looked like that could have been something perhaps that was going on. I feel like there's so many layers to this. We have to just keep going in deeper and deeper and deeper into the layers. There's so much evidence that's been put out there that you got to wonder which evidence is planted and which evidence is real, at the same time. But we have to definitely prepare. Here you see scary scenes in Italy. Crowds flee as hazmat men swoop in to take away an infected person, and everybody's running. So, have you guys seen food shortages yet where you guys are? We haven't food shopped in over 2 weeks now. We've just basically been picking up from the local farmers that have their stands, and that's a little bit of a blessing. Although we've been out of quite a bit of fresh produce now for a while as we're waiting for our stuff to grow. But you got to remember too, in the old days, you didn't have everything available to you all the time. There was a season for certain foods. They came into season and they went out. We have definitely been spoiled in our modern society, being able to get whatever we want whenever we want it. But perhaps we'll be going back to the old days in so many ways. So yeah, that would cause people to flee now, when you see this. And Italy is rapidly apparently going the way of China as far as these people dropping like flies, which is disconcerting. So you see here, it says, recently a voice message has been leaked in which it seems a top-level Iranian health ministry official is telling his close friends how dire the situation really is. I will translate a summary of the message. This is not me speaking. This is this person speaking, and we have the actual vocal message right here that was recorded. And again, it's not in English, so I don't know exactly what he's saying. I'm just going on the translation here. And so basically it says that you got over 10,000 infected, 1,400 deceased. That's more than 10% death rate. The Ministry of Health handed in his resignation to the president, but was rejected. The outbreak began with a person flying in from China to Guam via Mahan Airlines. And then it spread from Guam to Tehran, from Tehran to neighboring cities and provinces. Not good, spreading rapidly. So was that person one of those quote-unquote super spreaders? Apparently so. I have the links for you guys so you could play that for yourself. And you see here, coronavirus, Prime Minister initiates emergency response plan as Australia prepares for global pandemic. So we're seeing this a lot more places. We had the OC and we had San Fran declaring states of emergency. Here you have Prime Minister Scott Morrison saying the coronavirus outbreak will enter a pandemic phase, prompting the Australian government to initiate its emergency response plan. And so, without a doubt, even though the WHO now they say they don't issue pandemic warnings or pandemic statement. It's just amazing the BS that we're seeing here and the layers of cover-up going on. It's just so deep and very disconcerting when you see this. So, Australia, basically, the Prime Minister says, hey, we're going into pandemic phase, and they are moving forward with their plans. Well, congrats, Australia. At least you're telling people, that we're in a pandemic and it's time to take it to a new level.
Yeah, at least they're being advised, I mean, I know I see people in the chat saying it's FIVEG, and I do believe that's one of the layers to this. And I think ultimately they want control. They want to control our every move because we are waking up as a species, individually and collectively. Someone mentioned, the name, the C virus, CV, is another way of saying our crowns are being activated. And I do believe that the sun and these activations are real, and we need one heck of a distraction. And this is a good distraction. It seems very real to me. But just remember that, we don't want to get so far off the path that we forget to go within.
Scratch says, how many people die from normal flu each year. We covered that about 3 or 4 lives ago. And, this year we don't have really the full numbers yet, but it was a pretty severe year. Either way you look at it, it did increase last year, too. Last year went up significantly more than what we've had in the past. Now, I think people overall are more immunosuppressed than ever. And I do think some of the reason why so many people are immune suppressed is because we have too much different energies flowing through our bodies all the time. Even before FIVEG, we still have, the energy from all our Wi-Fi routers. We had, FOURG, but FIVE is a totally different thing. As we know, it's a military application. And there's been many officials come straight out and say that is going to cause a lot of health issues. It's going to suppress immune systems, and that's just part of it. As I'm watching our numbers, jump from like 890 to 600 to 870 to 777.
Yeah. I'm trying to tell you.
They're playing with things as they always do. But then also the food, the GMO foods. Nutritionally, foods don't have as much nutrition. We're bombarded with so much stuff. The skies are just painted every day. They're painted, the canopy is painted, who knows with what. So, there again, that's why we've adapted to doing the intermittent fasting. And I know we need to do a full 3-day detox complete. That is an immune system reset. So I would encourage everybody to, if you're able to, do a 3-day water fast. You can have herbal teas and black coffee on it as well, and that'll help to get some stem cells going in your body and build your immune system up, as well as help clean out our system, as well as we're back to 777. Pretty interesting watching all these numbers. Pandora's, it will come in waves. It very well could. And not the only thing loose. Yeah, we're going to talk about that too. There's a lot of things going on. And Tasha, yeah, that's one of the things I'm wondering too, because we're seeing people dropping. We're seeing them drop, and usually it's in a busy place. So you got to wonder, I think there's multiple layers. And so here we see how the South China Morning Post, CV much more likely than SARS to bond to human cells due to HIV-like mutation, scientists say. So talking about that, got Zero Hedge banned from Twitter, and then there was some sort of retraction that came out, and yet this is what we're seeing, and there's people that are getting reinfected. It seems that the rate of reinfection is 14% on average. So what's really going on here? And is this layered? And it feels like it is layered. And as we see, people getting relapses or catching it again, this is extremely fishy, to say the least. Japan and China closed schools nationwide as CDC reveals unknown origin patient came from Solano County. So they don't know how this person caught it. Is it up in the air? Is it a cloudy day?
Right. Yeah, is it?
Is it a cloudy day, guys? A lot of air traffic today. Yeah, I wonder how that happened. Yeah. So Starbucks says it reopened 85% of Chinese restaurants. Is that a good move? I don't know. See, now they're desperate from the economic standpoint. We see South Korean new cases surpass China's new cases, as South Korea is actually testing, and China's, as we were talking about yesterday, covering up big time. Hawaiian Airlines suspends service to South Korea. Brazil's neighborhoods take steps to keep the virus out. So yeah, down there in South America as well, we are starting to see some cases. Israel is the first country to warn its citizens not to travel abroad, period. Go home, stay home, don't travel. And I understand there's people out there that's how they make their living, and they're always on the road or in the air, really. But at the same time, you got to ask yourself, is it worth it? Because can you imagine that you feel like, oh, I just have to go to this meeting. I just have to do this. There's a lot of money riding on it. And then you get sick and then you might survive. But what if it, ends up taking your wife or your kids? How would you feel? Or somebody else's? So I think everybody needs to always err on the side of caution. I would hope they would. Saudis banned Mecca pilgrimage over COVID-19 fears. So we see in the past there's been an outbreak that kills 35,000. Now, in 2018, you had 2.4 million Muslims made this religious trip. Yeah, you don't want that going on right now. That's for sure. That red dot over the Middle East would cover the entire Middle East and just spread out from there. And here we see an awful suicide. An official from South Korea Justice Ministry reportedly took his life and jumped off the Han River bridge there and died. He came from the Office of Emergency Safety Planning, in charge of national emergency situations and crisis management. So, what does that tell you guys about the seriousness of this?
Yeah, that was really, really sad when I saw that. My heart sunk because could you imagine the type of mental torture this person was going through? I mean, the things that were flying through his head just moments before that, the things that he knew, the burdens that he carried, it's just so heavy. And, I know there's a lot of high profile people saying, don't worry about it. Even one of my favorite YouTubers, Dutch, even came out and said, I'm really sorry. I should not have told you guys to panic. I guess there's really nothing to worry about. I'm not so sure about that. I can't step out, not seeing all the information that we've seen. I cannot take that bold of a stance. So, but he did, and we don't know why exactly he did, but that was his way that's his way of dealing with things or saying what he said, and that's okay too. But no, I stand firm that we might be looking at a problem.
Yeah, and people are talking about Dutch's statement and being very confused because it seemed like Dutch was, I think, I was wondering, wasn't he just being a little bit sarcastic because of President Trump's speech? That's kind of what I thought he was doing. So,
facetiousness in there. Maybe.
Yeah, exactly. So guys, most definitely prep. And again, if you're ordering something online, then just basically, wear gloves, wipe it down as soon as you get a chance. Maybe not bring the box even in the house. Leave the box outside, and just simply, go ahead, wear gloves. Wipe it down with disinfectant, whatever it is, before you put it anywhere else. And, just be aware of that possibility. I think it's way better to order things online at the moment than it is to go out in public as much as possible. And we're still debating that. Do we take one more trip or not? Or we just deal with it? Unfortunately, our farmers market people, haven't been back in a bit. So I don't know what's going on with them. Hopefully they're okay. Nice couple. So at the same time, we're going to have to, buckle down some here and really limit our exposures regardless of what's going on. And so this is sad. So if you have an official that decides to go jump off a bridge, he thinks things are dire, that's super sad. And I think that adds to it. And this is also Dr. Eric Feigl-Ding. Buckle up, folks. Scientists have found out why the new CV is so much more infectious. Compared to old SARS way of entry, the new binding method is 100 to 1,000 times as efficient. That's, incredible. Shows the new virus has mutated gene similar to those found in HIV and Ebola, which many people think are MANUF. ACTU. You guys get it, right? Which I don't doubt it. I mean, we know there's all sorts of patents out there. We've seen patents. We understand the bigger picture. So this thing is 100 to 1,000 times as efficient. Is that natural? I don't think so. And here, this is Dr. Dina Grayson. So that county that has that anomalous case where they don't know how it happened is the same county where some people from the Diamond Princess were evacuated. So how far does this spread in the air? How far does this spread? You got to wonder about that. And of course, as she says here, some people just get a mild cold and that's it. And some don't get anything. And then even with the test, again, we're talking about the test being only 30 to 50% accurate. So when you're looking at those numbers, maybe it is in the millions already. Mm-hmm. And as we see here, this is Jennifer Zhang, not good news. A patient got infected for the second time as Norway detects its first case. There's been more than that. More than one time when patients have been infected the second time. And what's wrong with this picture, guys? Look at this. Yeah. He's got no gloves on. Checking this guy out. Is he an idiot? And his nose is sticking out. Mm-hmm. And that's a doctor.
Yeah, but you got to think maybe he's exhausted. Maybe he's tired, but you can't afford to get tired when you're dealing with stuff like that. Mistakes do happen. But that's pretty sloppy right there, actually. So, we got a lot of stuff that we're looking at. And as far as how far can it spread, I've seen these things where they did a sneeze, and it shows an animated thing about how far the sneeze snot stuff splatters. That's like a tongue twister. Yeah, and that's probably how far. And then maybe it can be airborne. So that's my answer to that question. Everybody just needs to really be careful. Really, really be careful.
Yeah, so, if you're looking at this, bigger picture, and we had a third of the world basically get the Spanish flu. And depending on the numbers that you're looking at, you had up maybe as much as 10% that got it, died. So if we're looking at that, then we're talking at like 2.5 billion people getting this. Now, there's some sources again telling us anywhere from 30% up to 80% of people are going to get this. So again, what's the best thing to do? Well, strengthen ourselves for sure. I have been taking boswellia because Rosemary told me to. So I have been. And, I think it does help with your breathing as well. So, people that have underlying issues are going to be more susceptible, but we can get stronger, guys. We can get stronger. When I was in my very early 30s and had ruptured 2 discs, L4 and L5, and then I ended up shortly thereafter getting Lyme disease. And when I had contracted Lyme disease and went back to work, I ended up getting pneumonia with scarring in the lower left lobe, which is not good. Yet back then, even though, I'm 55 now and I was like around 30, 31 then, I feel stronger now than I did then. And actually better, because back in those days, I used to have to use an inhaler, because of everything I had gone through. So my QiGong and changing the way I eat and making sure that we get exercise every single day, that could just restore your whole immune system and your body. So, be aware that our personal choices could be what makes the difference between life and death.
You know, our energy bodies are so, so important. And I think that's another way is to strengthen our energy body with it matters with what we eat, you know, because that's going to eventually turn into a human being. So when you eat the processed sugar and the white sugars and the glucose, that's going to turn into human. That's going to lower your vibration. So, I mean, I know we can't get in as many fruits and veggies as we used to, but we're still eating really, really good as best as we can.
And we make sure to do our qigong and our meditation because that takes the body into the rest and digest side. You know, we have the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems, and you're either making cortisol, which is going to stress you out, or you're making serotonin and melatonin, which are going to put you in a calm, relaxed state. So it's very important to allow the body to heal. The body can't heal when you have cortisol flowing through your system. So it's so important. So, you know, please take time to take care of yourselves now, because now is the time for you to prep your own body and get yourself ready. Because if we're going to have up to 80% of the population get infected with this stuff, as some of them are saying now, you know, you're going to have to be strong, you know, to overcome it. And, you know, it's never too late to change things. And here you see, this is in California, Fairfield, California. Schools wiping desks after a local case. So we're not being told the truth. As far as the numbers, it's most definitely very, very high compared to what they're saying. And Bay Area men take notice. CDC coronavirus face mask beard guide. A soul patch is okay. Stubble's not okay. And here I am sporting the longest hair, longest facial hair I've ever had, just because I haven't felt like shaving. So yeah, facial hair will block the effectiveness. It'll inhibit the effectiveness of a mask. And so something to be aware of. But honestly, we haven't been out in public much at all. Not much at all. So White House names AIDS expert Debbie Birx to help lead coronavirus response. Okay, is there a reason for that? Is she just the best choice overall? Or is there some truth to what we're talking about with these, you know, things?
Happens to be an AIDS expert.
And remember, Event 201, they found that using AIDS drugs worked and helped people. And then we had saw that it has AIDS-like characteristics, which, you know, would have to have been spliced.
These are all just coincidences. Otherwise, we would sound like we're conspiracy theorists.
Yeah, no, it must just be a coincidence. Yeah, I'm sure. And as we see here, Japan woman tests positive for virus after recovery. We've had multiple times that's happened now. Multiple times.
Somebody asked, what vegetables do I start by seed right now? You know what? Carrots are super quick, super easy.
We have a lot of lettuce. We have kale. We have Swiss chard. We have some pepper plants growing. We have sage because she likes it, even though there's more sage in the desert than you need.
I know.
Cilantro, because, I mean, I love cilantro, and basil growing as well. And it's getting better. So, you know, everywhere you are, it's different. Obviously, different grow zones. And so what we have here is daytime temps are getting nice. You know, for the most part, it's in the 60s and 70s now in the daytime. But overnight, it could still be, you know, down as low as around freezing. So right now, everything is on the inside of the house. And thankfully, Cindy's mom is very nice and doesn't, you know, she's okay with pots everywhere. And, you know, she is really easy. She's a wonderful lady.
Yeah. But yeah, so we got a bunch of stuff started, and I do love to grow the sage because I grow it, and then I not only use it to cook with, but I burn it too. And even though there's a lot of sage in the desert, I know I do bring that home, and I wrap that and I burn that too. Sage is one of my favorites. But I would say, like, if you're a newbie, carrots, you almost can't go wrong. Just put those things in the ground and a little bit of water, and they always grow for me.
And so David Breland shares that he's been HIV positive since 2004. So that's 16 years. Undetectable since 2005. Yeah, we could overcome even the things that are the most quote unquote dire. I can't tell you how many people I have seen get better from things that the doctor has said you're going to have to live with for the rest of your life. And the reality is no. No, not necessarily. There's things we can do, and we could put things into remission, just like with the Lyme spirochete that is probably still in my system. At least that's what modern science would say. It's just simply dormant because the immune system is strong, and we pay attention to it. And I mean, right here, what am I looking at? I'm looking over at vitamin D3. This is all just sitting on the corner of a desk. Boswellia, echinacea, golden seal, and black elderberry. They're all, just sitting over there. And we have bioplasma, which are cell salts. This is, and then on a shelf behind me, there's a ton of stuff. Yeah. And as Great Epiphany says, yes, colloidal silver, there's a batch in the cabinet. We have been not given, clear truths as to, everything. Just like with cancer occurs naturally in the body. Now, if your body is able to break it down as it should, it'll never be a problem because you will just simply break down those cancerous cells. And hence, this is a big part of why we do intermittent fasting. And so, typically we don't eat. I mean, sometimes we don't eat until after the live at night. So there's been times lately where we ate at like 8 o'clock at night or 7 or 8, and that's it. One meal and we're done. But what that does is it gives your body time to break down everything that's not healthy. Autophagy. Yes, she's learned her big words.
I am learning big vocabulary words here.
Yes, exactly. So, it's about giving the body a chance. Now, this is a little bit different, but I just thought it was, interesting. ICE has run facial recognition searches on millions of Maryland drivers. Have you driven through Maryland recently? Well, they might have done facial recognition on you as you drove through. Millions, So, again, Big Brother's here. And this has given Big Brother a chance to really flex its muscles. Running out of time, East Africa faces new locust threat. There is a guy in there. I thought there was. It looks like he's got a machete. Maybe he's trying to... I don't know what he's trying to do, but that looks pretty much like, what? You're outnumbered. Yeah. The locusts are swiftly breeding, and their numbers could increase 400-fold by June if the infestation is left unchecked, the UN has warned. I mean, it's already just gone through and just devastated crops. I mean, we are going to be talking about a global famine that we haven't seen of in modern times. This is what's facing us right now. So countries in East Africa are racing against time to prevent new swarms of locusts wreaking havoc with crops and livelihoods after the worst infestation in generations. A lack of expertise in controlling the pests is not their only problem. Kenya temporarily ran out of pesticides, and the pesticides are not good in the first place. Ethiopia needs more planes, and Somalia and Yemen, torn by civil war, can't guarantee exterminator safety. Local swarms have been recorded in the region since biblical times, but the unusual weather patterns, exacerbated by climate change, have created ideal conditions for insect numbers to surge. And we have talked about those biblical texts, and we have also talked about the far older Sumerian texts, which really, really curious how the gods always seem to send plagues and pestilence all the time. So this could explode 400-fold. So, wow. And, all you could say is that there's going to be so little food, and the only thing to eat is going to be the locusts themselves.
Right. Well, yeah, but that would work, because there's plenty. And hold on, someone made a comment in here. Kim says, God is going to hit the Catholic Church hard. Italy is mostly Catholic, and I don't want to say that word, priests will pay. Yeah, I don't mind that. The only thing that makes me sad is when I do see people trying to be really good people by following their religion, and they honest to goodness believe they're doing the right thing. As far as the priests and stuff I don't care what happens to them, because I do believe that they are aware they're not doing what's right on a certain level. But other people who just don't know, who can be woken up, I really hope they don't pay for anything.
And, again, I think that at the lower levels, there's an awful lot of very, very good-hearted people. Yes. And we talked about this with the Masons and Freemasons as well. I think that a lot of people, get in there, and at the lower levels, they think they are doing really good, and they probably are doing some good works. But yet, when you get to the high levels, they know the bigger picture that's going on. And, that's part of what we see. And the Dow, it plummets over 900 points. As that part of this is just getting going now. That's just getting going. And the lockdowns are going to become global lockdowns. And when you look at this is very, very similar. Look at the Dow 2019 to 2020 compared to 1928 through 1932. And so we see some parallels there. Whoosh. And it very well could be that we are, sitting on the cusp of the second Great Depression right now. And what we're facing, in some ways, even looks more scary than what we saw during the Great Depression. I think that we can make that argument, honestly, that we're facing a convergence of all these things. As we said before, grand solar minimum going on, magnetic pole reversal underway. You got, obviously, the CV-19. We have the locust plagues. We have all sorts of stuff going on. Of course, there's always the specter of war as well. And what happens, too, when countries get desperate, then, those that have, they become attractive for those that don't have to go and take. And so that's something else we'll have to look at. An elaborate unconventional warfare exercise set for undisclosed sites in North Carolina. And I can't believe it's this time of year again. It's the Robin Sage training. So I've covered this. This is the third year. This is an annual exercise. It is kind of interesting because, there's a lot of live action role playing, even with volunteer civilians and, in different scenarios. So if you're in North Carolina, you might hear some gunfire. You might actually see soldiers, and it might look like we're in martial law. And in these times, it could be this exercise right now, but it might be the real thing in a week or two as well. So yeah, this is live action role playing that they're doing in North Carolina that they do every year. So I have paid attention to that. And here we see, vexed by how to contain the virus, countries take tough steps. And we see each country doing different things. So you have Saudi Arabia cutting travel to Islam's holiest sites. South Korea toughened penalties for those breaking quarantines. And airports across Latin America look for signs of sick passengers. And obviously, we saw complete brutality in China under that regime. And we saw people protesting in Iran out in the streets over how things were being handled, and it's spreading in Iran very, very badly. And we see in Italy, too, the spread is very rapid. So, every country is going to be different. What's it going to look like in the U.S., UK, Canada, Australia? I guess we're going to have to see, and I wonder how long it is we have to wait to see.
Right, and you guys are so cute here in the room. We have a recipe swap going on in the room for locust pie and locust soup and stew and bread and lots of, yeah, this is really, really good. But, you make the best with what you got, I mean, you just make do. And I think, like, if it were to a point where that's all there was, of course we're going to make it yummy. Yeah.
Well, I still have a lot of spices. I could stir fry them, I guess. Yuck. I don't know. I think I'll sun gaze and get some energy from the sun, Interesting stuff, most definitely. And again, we were talking about these plagues as well. And look at this. Hordes of bloodthirsty ticks drinking animals dry in Vermont. 90,000 found on one moose alone. And, of course, ticks are a walking bioweapon is what they are. They're, obviously you have limes, but you have babesia, you have borrelia. There's all different sorts of co-infections that go along with this. Powassan now ticks carry. And, of course, Lyme's was named Lyme's for its first cases, and I caught it up in Connecticut when I was living there. And, of course, we had Plum Island right off the coast. And Plum Island was a top-level bioresearch facility, handling all sorts of nastiness. So, hordes of bloodthirsty ticks drinking animals dry. What's going on with this world here? What has been unleashed on us? More than half of moose calves have died in recent winters due to blood lost by winter ticks. And that's when I caught mine, too. I was hiking. It was like 30th or 31st of January. And it was on me for over a day. It was on me for like probably 2 days before I noticed it, as my arm was sore. And, it was on the back of my arm where I couldn't see it. So that is absolutely horrible. They say, and guess what they're blaming it on? Climate change, of course.
Yeah, of course. It's always something like this.
Always climate change. It's such a joke. It's such a joke. It's kind of like, I go back to the Resident Evil movie where we see in the beginning, we see this vial just going up into the air. And then, boom, it cracks. Yeah. And then you see the virus come out, and it goes up through the vents into all the rest, into all the air vents. And then you see people starting to come down with it, coughing and dying. And then eventually they come back as zombies. But, yeah, climate change broke the vial. Climate change snatched that vial of this bioweapon and threw it in the air. Sure. Yeah, I really believe that.
Yeah, I mean, you can go back to these shows that we haven't finished watching The Stand yet.
No. And it's just, everywhere we look, guys, it's just like one more thing after another. So what can we do? Get stronger. Get your immune system boosted and, limit your exposure for sure. Mark says, is colloidal silver meant to be used once or twice daily, teaspoon? I think you would get an assortment of different people saying things on that. Some people only take it when they start to feel like they're going to get sick because they're afraid of turning blue. As we've been told, you could turn blue. And I've seen pictures of only like 2 people that ever turned blue. And I got to wonder about the truth behind that as well. As David says, pray. Yes, definitely pray and focus, use your power of intent to create a positive situation. And, just again, limit exposure, get stronger, get healthier, exercise, QiGong, meditation, things like that. Get out of, producing cortisol in your body constantly, which, that's the stress hormone. So if we focus on this too much, it's good to be updated, get your updates and then allow yourself to decompress too. That's so important right now.
Mm-hmm. It is, no stress. You have to do that exercise. I mean, you don't have to. It's just that it really, really, really helps with the stress levels. And we know if we're under a lot of stress, that can compromise our immune system. So be as happy as possible. Be as grateful as possible. Hold that vibration really high. If you don't know what to do, do your dishes. That's what my grandma always says. And I love that.
Jason says Krishna was blue-skinned. He sure was, most definitely. And there are those blue beings as well. There's so much that I want to get into. We've just been busy with a lot of things going on personally as well. But we will get into some more uncovering of the mysteries of things all around us as well. We eat a lot of garlic too. Mm-hmm. Tons of garlic, tons of ginger, tons of turmeric. All good stuff. So, my friends, as always, be prepared, stay positive. God bless and namaste, and thank you so much for your support.
God bless and namaste, and thank you for your support.